ahead and call the meeting to order. This regular meeting of the Bardstown City Council, August the 9th. Before we get started, I'd like to ask those of us here this evening if we would have a moment of silence for the victims of our flooding in eastern Kentucky last week and those that are still dealing with all that this week. So if we would just have a moment of silence for them. Okay, thank you. And also we will be going into executive session at the end of this meeting to KRS 61.8101B, where deliberations on the future acquisition or sale of real property by a public agency when publicity would be likely to affect the value of the property. So we'll be doing that at the end of this meeting. And we did have some people here who represent Main Street and the Chamber on Cheers to Bardstown. That was an agenda item that's been tabled until the next meeting when they have more time to work with our chief and the Bardstown Police Department on the details of that. It's a repeat event, so I don't think we're going to have any problems, but we need to make sure we're all together on the details. And then as far as recognition of individuals, I'd like to recognize Todd Spalding, who is our acting chief of our fire department. Chief Madley had retired as of effective last Friday, so welcome Todd here with us this evening. And look forward to working with him now until the selection process is over. And Todd is obviously going to be, I think, applying for that position, so we'll be talking to him at a later date. Okay, first item, I didn't do this for you, Rich, but you lucked out. Rich Smith's with us from HDR, but it happens to be the first item on the agenda, so he's probably driven the furthest of anybody. So we'll take up the HDR agreement with HDR for engineering services on our Withrow Creek truck and pump station. So Jessica, I'll ask you and Rich, if y'all want to talk to that. I think I've got a few questions, but not many, but maybe some of the other council does.
I'll just give the council a brief overview of the project. This is a project that has been in my 5-year plan probably for 10 years. And it's one of those that each time I get close to moving forward with a final design process, there's another need that comes up that gets steps in front of this project. So this project has been needed. There's segments of this line that are undersized, especially as we've had growth in the west end of our community and in the county. Everything on the 245 force main that comes in from that side of town empties into this trunk line. So there were some things that when this was built in the 90s was not planned for. So there's also some areas that this, our pump station needs to be upgraded as well. And currently this is one of our few remaining wet weather overflows at this pump station as a result of the condition of this trunk line. The H2S gases that have been eating up a lot of this line have resulted in a deterioration of this infrastructure, and it's allowing in, trunk lines are generally deeper and a little larger, and it's allowing in a lot of groundwater, and in high intensity rainfall events, it's running along the Withrow Creek, and it's allowing a lot of that groundwater to enter the system, and it's creating additional expenses for us to pump it that far, and creating some environmental impacts that we're needing to get addressed. So hopefully it'll open up, we can seal it up and open up additional capacity in that area, and again, just take off our, eliminate those SSOs in the area, and again, gain back some capacity in the line and not be transporting rainwater, which is what we're having happen. Some of our Band-Aids that we did several years back with some projects, again, that at this point we've just grown beyond and are needing to really implement this project and before it becomes an even bigger issue. So with that, I'll let Rich answer any other specific questions about his proposal that you have.
Rich, I think, haven't you all done the other two most recent designs for us on sewer projects? The
Yes,
American Greetings?
the Brown Creek trunk sewer and the pump station work at Potter Shop, and also the work at the Town Creek treatment plant. So just to add a little bit to what Jessica said, it is a big project. It's about 21,000 feet of sewer. It's about 4 miles. And it is replacement sewer for the most part. So it'll be upsized. It serves a lot of the west side of Bardstown. And then the pump station, after the upgrade, this will be the largest pump station you have in the wastewater system. So it's a good sized project. It'll take about 2 years, start to finish, to do. So there's a lot of pieces to it. There'll be, design, bidding, construction, easements. So that's all part of this.
You just mentioned that it will be replacement, so I guess there's some areas where it might be parallel and some will be replacement. Is that how this is going to work? Or
Yeah, we'll look at that during design. I think most of it's going to be a replacement, but there may be some areas where it's better to parallel.
And then it says it's going to go up to 5.76 million gallons per day capacity. From where are we currently on that pump station? Is that
It's about, I think about 1,500 gallons per minute. That's a little over 2 MGD right now. We're going to take it up to 4,000. And then it'll also be built so it can be expanded in the future.
We all know that's probably the area where most of our growth will be, in the coming years, will be in that sector north of 245 and west, going out west on 245. So that's why the needs there. And we're already working on some pump stations on that very line that feeds that as we speak right now.
Yes, and this is kind of also along the corridor of our, with the state's project of the bypass, the inner bypass. So if there's any opportunity for some of that land, we're thinking that through and making sure that we're adding capacity to handle anything that might come in that corridor as well. And again, this is all going to be pumping directly to the Riley plant where we have the additional capacity already. So the one downside of growth is that we will eliminate our flexibility to be able to pump to either plant. Because again, the capacity, we can probably get by for a few more years, maybe 5, but there will be a point where everything will have to go no matter what to the Riley. And on a normal basis, that's where it currently does go. But it's always nice to have that flexibility to send it to the other facility in case there's a mechanical failure or other issues. But this is kind of our commitment that everything pumping here or going down this corridor is going to go to the Riley facility. Along with all of the Nelson County landfill, leachate also goes to the Riley facility as well.
Okay. Do other members of the council have any questions for Jessica or Rich on this?
The only thing I had, Mayor, was, my eyes always go to exclusions, Rich, and it's, so the environmental impact analysis and things like that, property surveys, floodplain modeling, property surveys if they have to be done. Is that going to be part of, I'm assuming this is in this fiscal year's budget, the engineering part of it. So would the rest of it be part of a bid contract that if those have to be incurred?
We're not sure if those services will have to be done. The pump station site is in the floodplain, so it depends on how much we impact the floodplain. If we impact the floodway, there may be a study that has to be done to show that we're not, creating a flooding issue.
So those would be further services that you would provide or would do additional bid or additional?
Yeah, we can provide the service if they're needed. That's why they're excluded right now. We're not sure if they're going to be needed.
And then on the easement documents, it seems like we've dealt with that on some of these projects, I guess because of the size of this one and the number. Jessica or Rich, is And you all usually had those kind of charges, it's like about $70,000 because there's 56 of them.
Yeah, so that's assuming we need 56 new easements. So it's 1,500 per parcel for the first 10 and then 1,200 per parcel after that.
I just didn't remember if that language was in our other agreements or not, other contracts in the past.
In the past, there has been a secondary engineering consultant that has assisted us with easements. But again, I think workload has prevented them from giving us a price or showing an interest in executing that work. So, and because HDR is already going to be doing surveying work to do the topographic and the layout of the line, you know, we can provide, as we normally do, to whichever consultant is helping us, like PBA information and parcel information and customer ownership as best we can tell, to try to keep those costs down as much as possible. And that's how we came up with 56, is we basically, David Evans in our office basically took all of the parcels that the existing line currently crosses, and assuming that we're going to at a minimum need a construction easement, you know, even if we go back in the same channel, you know, we like to kind of go above and beyond, even though we have the legal authority to go in and replace a line we already own, you know, to replace it. We like to try to go through that process and communicate with property owners and go ahead and obtain that construction easement and get additional easement, especially if the line's going to be larger, and go deeper in order to meet, you know, ever-changing EPA guidelines and division of water requirements. So that's kind of why we've got it priced out this way, is like this is our first guess, what we think we're going to need. And again, if property changes hands, I'm hoping, in easements in the past too are not a full-blown survey. So again, depending on if there's, I guess, conflict in information from what PBA shows and what other old plats show, sometimes that requires additional, you know, surveying work to confirm those items. But generally, an easement document and exhibit is not a full-blown property survey. But again, sometimes we have to do a little more work than we'd like to, but just trying to be upfront and do the right thing by our community members and the people that we're serving in the community. But yeah, there is a lot, because it's a long line.
I was hoping this was signed easements and delivered at this price.
I wish.
Not. I know we have to do those. Any other questions on this proposal? If not, then I would ask for a motion to approve the agreement between HDR Engineering and for professional services on the Withrow Creek Pump Station and Trunk Sewer replacement as presented this evening.
So moved, Mayor.
Have a motion by Councilman Dones. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Shekels. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion's carried. Thank you, Rich, for being here for the question. I know Jessica's anxious to finally get started on this 5-year plan in year 11. Okay, we'll move on then. We have a bid tab for the Parkway Drive water main materials. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is phase 2 of our Parkway Drive project. And in order to try to keep our costs down in light of lead times currently on materials, we went ahead and are purchasing materials in-house. So we did our own takeoff for the construction plans and bid out with different vendors for all materials associated with creating a loop along Parkway Drive, where the line currently ends just behind Parkway Baptist Church. A few years ago, we added a 16-inch main underneath the Bluegrass Parkway and tied in over along Filiatro Lane. But at this point, it doesn't make a loop all the way back through the park to the Nelson County Industrial Park tank. So this line will create that loop and provide better resiliency and equalization of pressures in that area by having this loop. So these are the material price vendors, and we bid it based on a base bid of fire hydrants and valves and tracer wire and some typical items. And then we also broke out pricing for if we decided to put in ductile iron pipe and then a pipe for PVC materials at C905, a little higher pressure rating, because this is a pretty large main, you know, and going to be like a transmission main. And as you can see, the pricing did turn out to be less expensive for PVC, although it was pretty competitive. Normally, we prefer ductile iron, you know, on large pipes like this. However, if you look at the lead time for ductile iron pipe, that is the kicker. Lead time for ductile is running about 1.5 years at 16-inch. So that just is a deal killer for us. So I'm recommending that we go with PVC C905 as bid. I believe Hayes Pipe Supply is the low bid provider for those all items for PVC. And the base bid items, the low bidder for the base bid is Ferguson Waterworks. So I set the bid up so that we could award to separate vendors based on each type to try to save us money, you know, to be the most efficient with our resources. So this comes up to a total project for materials for this project of $626,091.18.
Thank you, Jessica. Anyone have any questions of Jessica on this?
When you go to PVC pipe, Jessica, does that mean that you have to spend extra in preparation of the ditch work and then, I mean, fill material or anything like that you have to do special? I know you prefer ductile iron, but...
No, this is actually all out. None of it is in the roadway. So we are able to use, and we would use, a stone bedding material just to bed the pipe. And then as long as we've got good, clean material, we can backfill with native
You don't have to do
soil.
anything extraordinary because it's PVC, keep it from coming apart? Or...
No. We would have to use kickers and those types of things and joint restraints regardless. It's just the pressure rating on the pipe. And it's a little more obviously rigid. But again, we feel comfortable with the pressures that we have in this area that this material will be okay.
Thank you.
So we're looking to get material, bid this, the labor and that type of stuff, at 2 years down the road or what? Or is it already in the works?
We haven't bid the labor. At this point in time, I'm working with our Craig Downs, our Public Works Superintendent, and because there are, again, it's not in the road, there's no boring required, we're going to attempt to try to do this work ourselves with in-house crews and maybe rent an excavator, again, to try to keep those costs down. We're going to have plenty of other work coming down the pike that we'll be bidding out. So for this particular project, that's our goal. And it looks like, looking at lead times, worst case, if the longest lead time is for 16-inch gate valves, and worst case, if that's 36 weeks, that puts us starting construction, you know, around the end of April. But again, we could start beginning of April or mid-March if we have all of our other materials. So it gives us a little flexibility, you know, and you can lay this type of pipe in the winter if we get everything in. We've got our permitting into the Division of Water right now. I expect to get that in approval in about 6 weeks, maybe less, because it's kind of, we've already had approval on this project once when it was a larger project, so it's just a resubmit at this point.
You don't guarantee these prices if it takes 30 weeks?
Yes, that's the good thing. With tomorrow morning, we can lock in our prices, you know, as the vendor. And again, because we are a municipality, you know, we're not having to pay taxes on these materials. And these are vendors that we work with on a routine basis. So again, if you just had 100 feet that you needed, you know, somebody off the street, you know, because we buy so many materials from these particular vendors, we got a good price, especially just due to the length of the material or the amount of materials for this project. So we're trying to find ways to keep the cost down.
Since that's in the industrial park, you won't have to work on any type of easements for this
project,
Right. We already have an easement for this water main. It was part of the project that came through for BG Ventures a few years ago, and then their development got stalled, put on hold. So as a result, those easements were already dedicated and created for this line.
Thank you.
And then Joe, to your question too, our public works, they did all the installation of all the new water lines downtown on the downtown project. We bid out the sewer, but Public Works did the installation and all the hookups for the meters and so forth. So then,
We're thinking this is going to be easier than that. Working around all the other utilities and connections, and there's no taps in this section. It's just straight laying pipe.
tree roots.
I'd just like to make a comment, this is kind of off subject a little bit, but the guys that did that work, I don't know if anybody watches them, but that's the hardest working bunch of guys I've ever seen. They always working hard.
You see them at 7 o'clock at night, out there working, trying to finish up a certain street so they wouldn't have to come back the next day. So, yeah,
It's a good crew.
They are.
All
They're
right.
wanting to do it, I'm willing to let them have at it.
All right, so if there's no other questions for Jessica, I guess we'd like to need a motion to accept the recommendation of the city engineer for Ferguson Waterworks and Hayes Pipe Supply for the materials for this Parkway Drive water main project.
So moved, Mayor.
Got a motion by Councilman Hibbs, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Buckman. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Okay. We're going to table the Cheers to Bardstown until the next meeting. We do have a request from Tri-County United Way for their 5K Spirit Walk October the 8th. That is a Saturday. And I think this is a repeat, if I'm not mistaken. Chief, you remember that? I think it is. So, is everything in order on your all's end?
I think that they've reached out to Joe this week.
Okay.
The route's the same as it has been in the past few years.
Right. All right, if there's no other questions of Chief on this, can I ask for a motion then to approve the request for the street closures and the help from our police department for this 5K, Tri-County 5K walk on October the 8th?
So moved, Mayor.
A motion by Councilwoman Hart, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Shekels. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. We have, everybody had a chance to review our minutes from our July 26th meeting. If there's no additions or corrections, we can approve them by unanimous consent. Okay. And we do have, we had an electric and cable committee meeting July 12th, so I'll call on Councilman Jones to kind of give us an overview, and we might need to discuss the municipal order that's sort of part of that
Sure.
also.
Sure, Mayor. So just a synopsis of what went on in the Electric Cable Committee on 7/12. Cable internet business, the introduction of Johnny Wright and his new duties that he's going to be carrying out for us. Mainly, what I understood, he had a list of jobs that was this long that he was, that he's working on currently. So he only got to cover like 3 or 4 of those things right off the bat. But cybersecurity also is always key for our infrastructure. So he's going to be a big part of that. This multi-factor identification system that he's working on, and then again he's got a whole cacophony of other things that he's working on. So the City Hall head-end renovation is almost complete. And the future plans were revealed for the call center and customer spaces that would be used for the in-person testing and diagnostics. So I don't know if any of you all have had a chance to look at the renderings that they had, but it looks really nice, and obviously it would be, you know, off that kind of that northwest corner of the municipal building here, would be built in that area, kind of where that lean-to is now, where the fire department equipment used to be stored. It looks really nice. I'd be looking forward to discussing that with you all in the future. We discussed the fiscal court's contribution of the grant funds to help serve the unserved and the underserved areas in the county, and how that's progressing. Internet speeds will be doubled again in the fall, so that's going to go hand in hand with the rate changes that all come before us, you know, pretty soon. But the internet speeds will be doubled again. Electric projects, the 12 kV conversion project is nearing completion. The Bourbon Downs underground excavation phase is 75%, so that part of Bourbon Downs is in the underground excavation phase now, and they're beginning to pull wire, so that's progressing nicely. There's still ongoing difficulties, obviously, obtaining materials, as with everything else, you know, and it's slowing down some of the projects. That's completely understandable. They've done a good job of procuring what they have been able to get. So, repair and installation contractor bids on the electric department will go out this fall. They're going to be, and this is what the mayor brought up as far as vegetation policies that we're going to be discussing here next. They're going to be moving to a 2-year cycle on the trimming instead of what we've done in the past, the work order type, that they fill out a work order and then respond to it, you know, based on work orders. So they're going to start going to that 2-year cycle rather than that. So that's all I have in my notes. Thanks to Gary for his excellent minutes that I can derive my notes from, because I forget a lot of stuff that we talk about in the meeting. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Yeah, that call center will be a nice addition to them, because if you've ever been back where they all work and they're on top of each other, now at this point they're on one end of the city hall, and the balance of the head end and the home and all them are at the other end. They'll be all together in one, more or less, under roof in the same area, and have a much more customer friendly and a customer usefulness area for them to help work on those problems with the customers. Now you know, if you got to go back there, you've got a customer and there's 3 other guys working and taking phone calls and all that, or they're doing it out on an empty desk in the front of the building. So this will be a much better setup for our operation. And we get a ton of good comments from people who do need assistance. If they can come right here and meet with our people, they're not on a line for 45 minutes waiting to talk to somebody. They're talking to a real person that's located right here in Bardstown, and not somebody in a call center that might be who knows where. So people are very appreciative of that services that we provide, both internet and cable related. So,
They make house calls.
and yes, they do.
Well, this call center is going, what it looks like to me, you know, I kind of compare it to where when you go in, you know, you go into the cell phone places, and can be a really good experience or a really bad experience, but this is going to offer a comfortable place where people can come in, sit down face to face, as the mayor said, have their device in their hand if they need to, and work out issues. It looks really nice.
Okay, thank you, David. The next item is the municipal order. We had, in 2022-505 on our vegetation management policy, we had tabled it at our last meeting. I don't have Eric or Jeff here this evening. If anybody has any more technical questions, I don't know if we're ready to formally vote on that, or if we need to wait till we get them back here. I didn't reach out personally to them. I thought since they saw it on the agenda, they might have been here.
I spent some time with Jeff Miller and made me feel good with what's happening. So I'm good to vote on it.
I'm fine with it as well.
Maybe you or Joe can answer one question I had was, when it's zone 0, and they talk about taking the tree down 2-3 feet, but I'm thinking they're taking the tree down 3 feet.
What that is 3 feet, 3 feet from the lowest conductor.
Correct.
So if your conductor's here, it's 3 feet below that, and that's assuming 2 years growth.
Yeah,
That's what-
because it says taking it down 2-3 feet. I'm just saying, there's no way we're gonna cut a tree all the way
No.
down to 3 feet.
No, yeah, it's 3 feet from the
It didn't
conductor.
say 3 feet from conductor, but anyway.
He did say that might not be really attractive to look at it if they do it. His logic again was, well, 2 years is gonna grow back.
Well, and also,
We'll fill it rather.
you'll notice that there's a kind of a rider at the end of it that deals with that. If that tree gets back into conductors before that time, then it's going to be considered to be taken out altogether.
Right, then you have to
And then we
allow us
have
to replace it.
Then we have to, that's where the $500 stipend might be offered to replace that tree.
Right. Okay, well, it sounds like you all followed up, but then also, then if I could, I guess we did introduce it at the last meeting, we need a formal vote, then a motion to approve municipal order M 2022-05. Motion to approve it, and then
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
we have a motion by Councilman Doze, is there a second? Second by Councilman Hibbs. Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, then all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? All right, motion's carried. Eric and Jeff and the department will be happy that we got something in writing now that they can work from. Okay, we have cemetery deeds. We have 2 grave sites by Elizabeth Cecil. We can approve them by unanimous consent. All right. City Council, any members of the council have anything to bring before the council this evening? I don't really have anything to add other than stuff we're getting into this evening. So, and if I could, I need a motion then to go out of regular session into executive session pursuant to KRS 61.8101B, where deliberations on the future acquisition or sale of real property by a public agency when publicity would likely affect the value of the property.
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilman Checkles, is there a second? Second by Councilman Buckman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. We are adjourned out of regular session and we'll go into executive when the room is ready.